What if the conventional path to building a successful business is actually the thing keeping you from building the business that's right for you? Today's guest is a longtime journalist, book ghostwriter, online business pioneer, and founder. She's a Renaissance woman. Just put it out there. She turned a struggling writing career into something much bigger. Built a $6 million online business and had the courage to start on a new journey of discovery at age 65. Let's welcome Carol Tice to the show. Thanks for joining us on the flagship, Carol. How are you?
I am doing good and happy to be here.
Same here, same here. Well, you got a lot of stuff to share with us about, so I want to get into some of those things right now. But let's talk a little bit about what you have, kind of your journey from, I guess, in your words, struggling to $6 million. I feel like that's the kind of thing that anybody that's watching, listen to our show, it's like, okay, lead with that. So I said, I'm gonna go ahead and lead with it. You went from struggling to $6 million. Take us back to 2011. What happened there?
Okay, so what had happened was I was I had done 12 years as a staff writer. I was back to freelancing and after getting fired, by the way.
Mm.
And it went right into that 08, 09, 10 downturn. And I was like, well, okay, about that. I need to grow my business. And I grew it from about 50, 60K a year to 100K during that downturn. And as I talked to other writers, I was hearing a lot of, I'm starving, there's no work, I'm writing articles for $5. And I was like, I don't get that. Why is that happening to you? You're such a tiny business that you get that the giant macroeconomic factors don't have to like impact you. There's still room for your tiny little 100K business, in it.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and they weren't marketing. And so I started a blog, is where it began, make a living writing. And eventually, looking for a way to monetize that blog, that became the community. I joined a paid community on how to be a better blogger and went, ooh, I love this model, paid community. This is awesome. I'm learning a lot. And I sat on that for a while and then went to a conference, an online business conference, and came home really fired up, did a 90-day launch, and got it up finally. And so I had my audience from my blog, and it just built from there, built to 500 members pretty quickly. And
Oh,
then we
wow.
closed the doors and stopped being open all the time. And it built to 1,000. And then we were stuck there for a while. And then I started getting approached about selling it. And I learned the first time that happened, I was like, no, that's crazy talk. I love my magical cash machine of the internet.
Yeah.
Why would I ever get rid of this? And then, time goes by and children graduate and you're thinking about a new phase of your life. And about the third time somebody asked me, I was like, well, what would the next step be? And they were like, well, we send over a term sheet. And I said, well, we'll send it over. Let me see what's on it. And what I learned is to make an exit I needed to grow the business 50% more. And I
Ah,
actually hired a business consultant and did that. Grew it to 1,500 members, and then I sold it. So the 6 million, I just want to clarify, that's like lifetime of the business across the
sure.
decade. And this was all back before AI, and I had a staff of 10, and it's not like I'm sitting around on a mega yacht and I have $6 million in my pocket. That's not what happened, but I did get a nice exit that allowed us to, buy our RV for cash and fix up the house and then sell it. And then we were full time for 2 years in the RV, just doing a lot of travel, loving life, and I thought I was done with community. And I was just ghostwriting books for thought leaders, back to my own freelancing. But then I got sucked back in to the new and much easier and more beautiful world of community that exists today, which is that there are platforms that enable um, community like Skool and Circle and
Yeah.
Kajabi. And there's now, platforms that make it super easy and cheap to be in the community business. And so community's just exploding. And now I teach the community model. I had a decade as an owner operator and had an exit, which very few small business owners do. So I kind of jumped back in and I'm kind of loving it. I love the Skool ecosystem. It's an amazing place to meet other entrepreneurs and collaborate and grow your membership just by I mostly promote my communities on Skool.
I love it. So
That's
tell us,
where
Carol.
I talk about it.
So what about a paid community makes you believe it can become a viral business? What has to happen? Because I know a lot of friends who may be watching this or listening later on replay that either you desire to or they have started a paid community. What makes that? What makes the next step of that? I should say a viable business, a viable company. How's that work?
That is an epic question, Mr. U, because now that it's easy to start communities, people are starting them. They're starting them without building an audience ahead of their launch, without any market research into how they will be different, what is already in my competitive space, who else is in my industry, and what are they
Hmm.
doing, and how could I be different? And then they have 8 members, and then they are sad. Because that is not going to be enough action for community. So community is a little bit of a, magical, mystical thing because you are building it, but it won't be a business. It won't be a viable business unless you get something like 100 people in it fairly quickly. You need enough people where people come in and it feels like a community. There's stuff going on. People are talking. There's conversations. You're having events. There has to be that feeling of peer support. People come to communities for the peer journey, or they could just go on Teachable and take a class from you, in their own bubble by themselves. But a lot of people suck at executing all by themselves. And that's why community is like the business model for the future is we are all lonely. We all know about this bowling alone, that everyone is disconnected and looking at their phones and feeling very depressed. And what they need is people who get them. At people who get what they're going through. I'm vegan and I need to learn more about vegan recipes. And oh, you have a vegan community. I joined one yesterday. Is just why I toss out that example. I was like, ooh. So the Skool news, I think, mentioned them or something, and I was like, oh, I'm always looking for more, great recipes. Why am I not in there? And I go in there and I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, um, that finding affinity with other people is super powerful. And the great thing about it is you're building a business that doesn't all depend on you. It
Okay.
you are creating something that if you do it right, almost doesn't need you. You're like occasionally giving it a little poke, boink, and the community is going, and they're requesting things, and you're going, oh, okay, I'll make that, and they're talking amongst themselves, and they're getting accountability buddies that they call every week, and they're using that model to accelerate their own success or their journey to lose weight or meet someone or whatever they're doing, whatever the community's about. Um, and that's why it's so beautiful because we are all tired of being sold by faceless corporations who want to hand you something, and that's the whole relationship. It's like, okay, I
Okay.
delivered your thing, bye. you know,
Yeah.
um, People are looking for connection, they're looking for relationships. And the thing about the community model is that it allows you to have a broad impact. And this was a big thing for me because I didn't just want to teach a few people. I had done one on one coaching, I had done small group coaching for writers, and it was better than the one on one coaching. It was more effective because they had, 10 of them. And community to me was the logical next step was to multiply that impact. And there's just a reality that this model allows you to use the power of mass adoption to drive your price to nothing, to really low. I'm going to charge you $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 to do a coaching package with you. But for $25 a month, no obligation, leave any time, I was able to help 14,000 people. and make a good living. And that was important to me because I actually wanted to move the needle of my whole industry. I wanted to influence the entire conversation around the value of freelance writers, what they should charge, what your work is worth, and to help people understand that, they didn't have to write for content mills for $10 an article, and that there were good clients and how to get them. And I couldn't do that one-on-one coaching a dozen people a year. I could never
Sure.
have that impact.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just the most beautiful thing ever to be able to have people for $25 a month having an all-you-can-eat library of resources on how to market their business, write high-paying kinds of writing, and have that bigger impact. So that's why I love this business model.
I love it.
It's multiple advantages for both you as the owner and for the participants. They are getting a fortune's worth of value on the cheap, and because it's cheap, you can attract enough people that it's still a very serious income for you. So
I want to come back to that. I want to ask you a question first. I want to come back to the whole paid community model idea and the one-on-one coaching, because I have experience in both. I'm curious about something I want to ask you about. But before we do that, I want to commend you first on having the courage to do business your own way. It seems as though a constant thread in your story that you buck conventional wisdom when it comes to the traditional path of entrepreneurship. Carol, what did you have to unlearn? What did you have to unlearn about how a business is supposed to be built in order to create the business that actually worked for you? Was there something you had to unlearn, mindset or an approach?
Well, to kick it off, you're supposed to be young when you start a business. There's
Sure.
actually a lot of data that all the great, Nobel-winning discoveries, all of the breakthrough business startups, somebody was in their 20s or 30s. And that after that, it's like a real big downslope, and nobody, I guess, has that inner freedom and courage and that the hubris of youth to like do it. And I started the first one when I was like, I think nearly 50. So I guess the first step was ignoring, that, oh, this is a game for the young, blah, blah, blah. I seem to be missing a gene that a lot of people have where they're afraid to put themselves out there. They're afraid to experiment. They're afraid to try different things. And I just don't care. And I'd like to encourage everyone listening to this to whatever you're hearing the gurus saying out there, if it doesn't resonate for you, just go, I don't care. That's not me. That's not for me. On Skool, they have a whole thing where you should be grinding 24/7 to get a flame. If you do 30 days of continuous action on Skool, you get a flame by your name and people think you're hot something. Oh, you're really in on Skool. You're all in on Skool. You're doing this. I have never had a flame. I am a Sabbath keeper. I am never on my Saturdays. And that is how I was able to sustainably help, 1,500 needy writer neurotic children at a time for 10 years, because it was sustainable, because I was not burning myself out always doing it. So that I rejected the hustle culture kind of thing right off the bat. What are other things I refuse to do? Well, every guru will tell you that when you have a low ticket offer, Misty, what you need is upsells. You need a high ticket offer.
Sure.
You need a $10,000 offer, or you're just going to be nobody. I've never had one. I have never had a truly high ticket offer. I think as high as I went was like I had a coaching program, a small group coaching program for mid-career writers that was like maybe $1,200.
Sarah, I gotta jump in. I gotta jump in here because you leaving me far behind, and I'm like, I need you to stay here just for a moment. This is where I need you right now.
Okay.
We only got a time for a couple more questions in the show, but I have to ask this two-part question before we get to the final mirror check question of our show. So I gotta ask this now. You talked about the paid community model, and you explained it very clearly how it worked for you. I've been in Skool. I've been in some things like that. And the results were a little bit different for me. It wasn't my model, it wasn't my school, but it didn't work out for me the way it did for you, which is fine. No shade being thrown at all. I've been a coach I'm in year 30 now. So I've done the one-on-one thing. So I need to ask you two questions, and you'll be helping me out. So this is probably the most selfish thing I've ever done on my show in ever. You help me out with this one. This is about me right now.
Let's go.
All right. So the first part of my two-part question. Let me reword that. Let me rephrase that. Okay. So in the coaching consulting space, you mentioned coaching, so I want to understand what you meant by that. You never had to do a high ticket offer. So I guess my question is there ever a situation where a paid community is the wrong business model? That's one part of my question. And two, if you were giving advice to somebody who is generally high performance coaching, life coaching, business coaching, whatever, how is a paid community model built or running the way you've been running it? How does that work for them? Because most times we've been force fed this, Carol. You got to have a multi-tiered offer. You got to have a 4 different tiers. And I find it nauseating. Maybe it's just me. But how do I, as a coach, have a community like that where I don't have those things? And then the second part of the question is, when's a paid community not the right business model, depending on what genre or whatever? So,
well, let me start with that. So,
okay.
Paid community or free community is not the model for you if you don't have a big heart and a passion for helping your people. Because if you would like to just drop something on people and go, you're socially anxious, you don't want to make friends with people, whatever, this isn't your mode of doing business where you really want to come alongside people and be with people for years and hang out with them, and you kind of don't enjoy socializing with your people, then yeah, this is not going to work out because they do want some of you, they're partly here for the you. You don't want it to be too much you, or it's not a saleable asset. So that's, the other side of my thought process, having cleaned up the sale and taken myself out of the business to sell it, is that I'd like everyone to have that in the back of their mind, that it shouldn't be too much you. But it can be, it can have upsells. And there's people who are doing just free communities and then they upsell all their courses out of it, but the membership is free. There's a lot of models now. So that's one. There are communities where the membership is $2,500 a year, $5,000 a year. And it's essentially them selling their premium program and they're only taking 10 people at a time and then they're closing the doors. Or so you can run the community model these days. I mean, I don't know about other platforms, but Skool makes this super easy and super easy to change your mind. I just changed my pricing. I eliminated my free level and went to 1 week trial and it rolls into paid membership instead. I'm playing with that now. So it depends on what it is you're building, and what you deliver and who your ideal client is and what their budget is. My people were broke freelance writers, and I knew that about them.
Yeah.
And not only were they broke, but even if they weren't broke, they had a poverty mentality. They're that starving artist mentality. And I would hear these people be like, you need a $5,000 offer. And I was like, I'm telling you right now, my people are not paying $5,000 for this. No. So you can bang your head against a wall trying to follow like this kind of guru advice, or you can listen to your heart and your community and your people and get a sense of who they are and what they need. And if you build that and deliver it, they'll buy it and you'll be rich. That is how we built everything in Freelance Writers Den. We're thinking about 6 different course ideas we got. Which is the one you like? Oh, okay, we'll build that one. Just if you don't have that sort of service leadership mentality where it's not about what you think they should have and stuff, and you're not like living in your head, building things in a vacuum, and you want to get out there and get your hands dirty and really find out what people want and build it for them. That's the community model to me. is
Fair enough. Fair enough.
you are
I got to
serving
actually
the
follow up.
community.
No, I'm with you on that completely. I got a follow up question that I think I should have included that, but I didn't do that. All right.
Sure.
So when the coaches, normally doing one on ones, how in your assessment, and if you don't know how to answer this, you can just do your best, but it's totally fine. How do they replace that? One on one. Me and you and the coach. You're my client, Carol. We're one on one coaching sessions on Zoom, Google Meet, whatever it is, and we're talking about things that are germane to you, things that you need help with. How do we replace that in a paid community model where I guess the doors are open and the curtains are up? Everybody can see what's
Well,
happening.
you don't
Is that
have
possible?
to. I did have a few people who wanted to still one-on-one coach with me, and so I put together a coaching package for them and said, okay, well, if you want that, we can do that too. But the key there was they asked for it,
Sure.
and I felt that out with them, and it came from them, not I'm gonna charge you $10,000 because I need a $10,000 offer and I need to make a lot of money. I think that'll make me rich. If it comes from the groundswell of your community, then it's going to be successful for you. And there's plenty of people selling high ticket offers inside of community models.
Sure.
Plenty of people doing it. It just wasn't for my audience. And I don't know, I was raised a lower middle class kid, literally from the wrong side of the railroad tracks in the San Fernando Valley in California. And the idea of charging someone that much that just grated on me. It didn't feel like me, It just wasn't where I wanted to go. I wanted it to be affordable and be for a lot of people,
I love that. I love that. Thank you. All right, this part of our show is the last question of the show before we close our broadcast out. It's called a mirror check question. So I kind of want you to speak to the people who are watching and listening, either live or on replay. They spent years building somebody else's dream, and now they're faced with having to start over at a later date, having to rebuild, reinvent themselves the way that you did, Carol. What would you want to say to somebody who's in that category, who knows they got to build something of their own, but they have all these barriers in their mind? My age, the time I spent, how much has been wasted. Do I have the finances? Do I have the resources? Do I have the skills? Am I enough to do this at this state? What are you saying to them, Carol? Speak to them.
You can. Start experimenting now. This is a series of science experiments. Don't feel rejected. Don't feel if the first thing you try doesn't work out and stuff. And I actually may be about to blow up a thing I'm doing and do a different thing, after a year and a half of doing one thing, and which I've actually never done. The first thing I did, it just went. But just understand that you have something to offer this world, and your journey is to find out what that is. Where do you fit into the marketplace? Just get on the journey. Start asking questions. What kind of audience is coalescing around you when you post about what you're interested in building? Start talking to them and asking what they want from you. If you get out of your head and ask what people want from you based on what what your life experience is, you'll find a thing that you can sell to them that'll be something from your heart that they like. And you're not too young, you are not too old, you don't know too little, you don't, just all of this. There's so much of this out there. I once had a freelance writer tell me she was going to go study at the culinary school in France, at Le Cordon Bleu, so she could write about food. And I was like, oh my God, you don't need to do that. I just don't know enough yet. Knowing is a bottomless pit. There is a whole lot of people out there earning good money, learning along with their people, having people follow their journey to doing something. Go check out all the reels of people who used to weigh 600 pounds and now they weigh 400 pounds, and they still have a long way to go, and they are making a fortune being honest and real with people about their journey and how hard it is. something you in your life experience or your work experience in your passions and your world connects to money in the marketplace somewhere. And that's what we work on in the free week in 90 day community relaunch, is identifying what that is. That's exactly what we do. And then you have a thing you can work on launching.
I love it. You answered my question, and your link is on the screen for you guys that are watching. If you're listening to us and you haven't gotten to the replay yet, it's in the show notes and in the comment section. You won't be able to miss it. So, Carol, thank you again. She's a pioneer extraordinaire. Carol Tice, thank you again for being a part of the show today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I prefer pioneer to what I usually say, which is dinosaur.
You're not that whatsoever. And of course, you guys are interested in what Carol is doing with the 90-day community relaunch. Of course, that link is in the show notes and in the comment section. You honestly can't miss it. You can be able to join her school and get tapped into her as a coach and as a leader. She has many insights to give to you. So the episode resonates with you at all, reach out to her. Of course, subscribe to what they call me Mr. You, the podcast, on our YouTube channel. We can always use help there, or wherever you get your podcast from. Happy to continue the conversation. And don't forget, the difference between where you are, or who you are, and who you could be begins with what you do every single day. That's Carol Tice, pioneer extraordinaire. I'm Mr. You. This is They Call Me Mr. You, the podcast. Thanks again for being a part of this journey. We're out.